can't explain it. Like the only way I can explain it is like I just felt like something was wrong with me. I felt it. I felt something was wrong with my brain. That's the only thing I can say. There's people who are like 80 years old doing this, like, you know, like, and they all wanted to go to the top of this mountain. And I was like looking around like, how is everyone doing this? Because I couldn't move my legs. I knew in my head and no one was listening to me. It kept coming up MS. So I thought I had MS, but everyone was just like, don't be silly. You're just quite an anxious person, Jay. And I'm like, said to me, she's like, I'm not going to treat you anymore. And she was like, I really need you to listen to me. And she's like, I hope you have a good doctor. And then I was like panicking, like, what do you mean? And she was like, you're showing a lot of early signs of MS.
Jay Ashby, welcome to the MS Mindset.
Thank you for having me.
You're very, very welcome. First remote podcast I've done, so perhaps have to bear with me a little bit. But I did the last one. With Carol, who lives not too far from me. She's had MS for about 3 years, so it was really good catch up. So yeah, really excited to catch up with you and see how you're getting on. So wanted to start by asking. I guess what your experience was like during the diagnosis process. So obviously you have MS, as I do. It's relapsing remitting, I think, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, relapsing. Yeah, it was. It's so I can't. Do you know what? I thought I was okay. You know, at the time, I thought I was with it okay. But when I look back now, I just feel so sad because I was a mess. I was an absolute mess, and I think it must have taken me quite a while. I'd say the first year was really, really hard. Yeah. I don't know if that was when were you diagnosed?
2018.
2018, yeah. So I was 2019, yeah. It was just really hard, really. I'm just, when I think back to it, it's just so overwhelming. And you know, when I have anxiety anyway, this is the thing. I thought I had anxiety when I was younger, in my early 20s. But when I look back, that's when I started having my first MS symptoms.
Right.
So it's really hard to know what is what because I didn't feel right. Yeah. So
do you find you do that now? If ever you feel something or you're not feeling great, that you automatically assume it must be to do with your MS?
I do sometimes. Yeah, I think I do that. I try not to, but yeah, I do blame my MS for a lot of things. I think, it must be MS. I don't really get, sometimes I don't really get anything else checked out. So I'm just like, I'm sure it's just my MS. It's fine. But I definitely do that. But weirdly, since I know that I've had MS, I've got MS, my anxiety seems to have settled a little bit more. I still get it really badly, but I just feel like I thought something was wrong with me and no one was listening to me. That's how it was.
That's it. No one can really see what's going on. It's one of these invisible illnesses, isn't it? And I think sometimes when you're starting to articulate how you feel and what's wrong or that something's not right and you can't really evidence it, you kind of, even if people don't think it's just crazy, she's just saying this, saying that, but you think yourself, like, people mustn't believe me because they can't see it. What are people going to think?
Yeah, that is exactly it. And when I think back to my really, really first symptoms, it was always when I was going abroad, because obviously the heat affects me really bad. Yeah. So it actually become a joke, a bit of a joke. So one time I went to Turkey and I felt like I had something in my eye. Obviously it was probably optic neuritis or something like that. Yeah. And it just become a joke, oh, well, I can see it in my eye, but we couldn't get it out. And it was just we were going to the pharmacy trying to get this thing out of my eye. And obviously nothing happened and it died down. And it was quite painful, a dull ache. And then I went to, a few years later when I was 25, I went to Benicassim, the festival in Spain with my friend. Yeah, and it happened again. And I was like, oh, this is so weird. I always get something in my eye when I go abroad. It was just thing that just become a joke. And I was like, yeah, this always happens to me. And you see looking back at the photos, you can just see my eyes all red where I've been trying to get this thing out, which is not with it. There's nothing there to get out. So it's so strange looking back and putting all the pieces together because so many weird things were happening and I just ignored it.
Yeah, when you don't know what it is and it sounds like this weird cocktail of symptoms that don't seem to make sense. It can be really unsettling, can't it, and confusing. But so how long was that period then from your diagnosis at 2019? You say in your early 20s. When did that sort
Yeah.
of start?
So I think I thought there was something wrong with me at 21 when I was after uni. I just felt like something was just not right.
Yeah.
And I remember going to the doctor and saying like, "There's something wrong with my brain." And obviously, they were like, "Okay, you've got anxiety, you've got depression. Like, you just need to do that."
Take these, move along.
Yeah. And I never took them actually. I just thought I just never took them. And then when I was 23 or 24, I think that was when I was in Turkey and I had something first in my eye. And then again, I was 25. And then it wasn't until I was 28 I got my diagnosis. And in all that time as well, I remember like always feeling tired on and off. And I think little things would happen. Like we went to Finland once, me, Sam, and his family, and they were all doing this snow trek thing. And there's people who are like 80 years old doing this, and they all wanted to go to the top of this mountain. And I was like looking around, like, how is everyone doing this? Because I couldn't move my legs.
Right.
I couldn't move my legs properly, and I was like, why? And at the time, I was going to boot camps. I was trying to keep fit, and I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, it was just little things like that between my diagnosis where I was like, what is happening? I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've gone off on a tangent
now. No, I love tangents. I'm the king of tangents. Don't worry. Ironically, I guess as well, because it kind of can feel like you're wading through snow just day to day now when fatigue sets in. Is fatigue something that you typically tend to feel sort of off and on?
I do. I'm someone who is I'm always busy. So that if I do find it hard, slowing down with MS, but I've had to, and I'm trying to manage it a bit better. But when I am really fatigued, I mean, as you know, I just cannot do anything. I can't do I just can't. Like, it's hard to get in the shower. It's hard to even watch TV, even get out. But it's just so strong. It's awful, isn't it? It's just awful.
It is. Yeah. And I think it's one of the more difficult things perhaps to explain to people that don't really understand. And I suppose it's not their fault. They can't really understand it unless they experience it, that it's not just like being tired. It is just like you've got this big heavy weight on you that makes everything so difficult. Even simple tasks, like you said, showering, I think is something that, I mean, I got a ADHD diagnosis last year, and I find that with that as well, I get quite overwhelmed, quite stimulated with certain things, and showering, I think, seems to be that one. So dragging myself into the shower with fatigue and with this sort of real overwhelm is just, it's something that I find so difficult to explain, but and hard for people to understand, I guess, when normally it's something that we would just take for granted, and it's just day-to-day life, isn't it?
Definitely. It's so hard. And it happens sometimes, like I'll be out and I will feel absolutely fine. And it happened actually the other night when we were out for a meal, and I was like, yeah, actually I feel fine. We'll go out for drinks after. And halfway through the meal, I was like, oh no, I need to go home now. Like it literally just stopped. I was like, I can't even bother to talk anymore. Like I couldn't. Yeah. I need to go home. Like I'm sorry if I'm being rude, but and everyone was like trying to be like, I'll just have a Red Bull or something. And I was like, I can't. I need to go home.
That'll fix it. Yeah, that's
not.
I've not tried caffeine.
Yeah. It is. I just can't. I can't explain it. Like when I do try and explain to people who don't have it, it's just really hard to explain, isn't it? It is just so strong, and I don't think anything helps.
No. I mean, particularly like with you say you've been to uni. I'm sure there was plenty of late nights drinking and dancing. We all know that lack of sleep and how hard that next day can be. But it's like nothing else, and it really can have that big impact on your social life, because you want to see your friends, you want to be involved, you don't want to miss out. And even like you said, sometimes you think, you know what, I'm going to take advantage of this now. I'm feeling all right. I'm feeling good. I'm going to do it, and then the kind of choice is taken away from you.
Yeah, it does make me feel a bit like. So when I've had my really bad tremors that I think you've seen on my Instagram, they always seem to happen before like hen dos, or if I'm going away with a group. And I do think, because I do worry about it, like I worry, like I'm okay if I'm with Sam or my family, but going away with a group of girls, I'm like, oh, it's a hen do, so you're going to be expected to be going out all the time. And I don't know if it was a mixture of like the excitement and the anxiety, but it just seemed weird that every time it always seemed to be like a trigger like that, like a hen do, or just like going away without Sam, where I felt like I had to stay up or like keep going.
Yeah. You kind of have to present yourself, I guess, as one of the girls and, doing normal things. And I guess there is a bit of a self-conscious element to it as well, because you are, without choice, going to be showing a side of you that's quite vulnerable and that people aren't used to seeing. I had a similar experience last year, earlier this year. Went away with some of my friends and hadn't seen a lot of them for a long time. I moved away a good few years ago, and I think for them, a couple of them commented that it was just a real eye opener for them, because when you don't see people for a long time and with our symptoms, the way that they can progress and get worse, it is sort of moments like that when you are vulnerable and people do see that side of you that I guess you almost protect them from a lot of the time as well.
So how do you, I don't know if you're similar to me, but how do you feel about showing people that side of you? Like, I still struggle to show people that raw.
Yeah.
Like, I try to.
Yeah.
My close friends and stuff.
I think it's a weird balance, really, because there is that self-conscious element, and I think particularly as a young lad and a dad, I want to show that I can do normal things and I'm just like anybody else. But then I think there also is, because like we said earlier, with it being an invisible illness, sometimes there is a bit of a sense of not relief, but when people do see a sort of a physical representation of like, no, this is how rubbish it is. I'm not just sat being moping around, can't be bothered to do anything. Like, this is something that's happening to my body and I can't control. So there is sometimes like, I can't think of the word right now, but when people do get to see that side, it's almost a better way of explaining things than you could yourself, any other way. Yeah.
I do agree, because until I had those really extreme stony or tremors, I think people just thought most of the time I was doing okay.
Yeah.
And it's only, again, obviously it actually happened. So I actually went on a hen do with one of my shoulder tremor, and I was like Will out of the in-betweeners. I was like this. And it was like, I was literally it was so weird. And we had to do like cocktail making, and I was just like, what do I do? I'm like,
everyone's passing them to you to shake. So,
it was just like, I was really great because they're making cocktails that day. But it was just sort of, I remember that was a time where I tried to push through it. That was the first one I ever had, and I tried to push through it. But you can see the way people are looking at you are like, oh my God, this is bad. Like, how are you? Yeah. I was like, what else do I do? And I think I was there it was only a local, like not far away. It's only like an hour and a half away. Yeah. So I tried to push through the first 2 nights, and then I was just like hysterically crying and it wouldn't stop. And then Sam just come and got me. But it was only then, I would say, it's like seeing how people are like reacting. It's like,
you think you might be hiding it a bit better, or it's not as obvious, and then people do the whole like,
it's like, oh.
I suppose it is difficult for the people as well, because they're kind of damned if they do, damned if they don't, because it's really hard to say the right thing, because it depends on how you're feeling at the time. Sometimes I get annoyed, not annoyed, but like disappointed maybe if people perhaps haven't asked or aren't checking in, or like, are you all right? Is anything, but then when people do, I'm like, brush it off. I'm like, I'm fine. I don't want to fuss. So it's exactly. I do feel sorry for some people. Yeah.
I'm exactly the same as you. It's hard. It's really hard. And even though like, I feel like the majority of the time I'm doing as, I'm really trying. Like, I did change my diet. I changed a lot of things. But it's hard sometimes. And sometimes you just feel like, you're doing the right things, you're resting, you're doing everything they tell you to do, and it's still just crazy.
And it's never bad things, like, stop exercising, stop exhausting yourself. It's always like, don't drink alcohol or reduce your sugar, or it's always the fun stuff.
It's always the fun stuff. It's so annoying.
Really
and
is.
I don't know if you were the same, but I am like a really outgoing person. I love to be busy. I love going out all the time. Even though I'm in my 30s, like without an MS diagnosis, I still think I'd be like I haven't got kids or anything. I'd be a young 30. I'd still be going out a lot.
Yeah.
Going everywhere. But
going
now
for meals or after work drinks or, it's really tough. And I think it's interesting with some of the examples that you've given, like you're talking about obviously traveling away, being away from your partner, where, your partner is your safety net because they see the good, the bad and the ugly, and they will know better than anyone else the support you need at the time. I start to think there's like such a huge link with stress, and obviously you mentioned anxiety, or these feelings, that are chemical in your body when it's things like stress and worry and anxiety or depression. that I think has such an impact on your immune system, which then obviously causes inflammation, and it's just a bit of a cycle then, isn't it? Because you then start to worry about it more, starts to make things worse. So I don't think it's surprising that it's situations like that where you do find you get a flare up, and you worry, well, people think I'm turning it on now because I'm with people or this, that, and the other, and then you worry more, and it's just...
Oh my God, it's awful, isn't it? And like, even thinking about it now, just bringing it up has made me think, haven't actually been abroad without Sam in 4.5 years. Like, so since every time I've meant to go, it just hasn't, like it's just like the stress has just got too much for me.
You've either said no because you didn't think you'd be able to, or you've backed out last minute because the worry and the stress and the apprehension maybe of leading up to it has caused you to think, I can't do this. And
yeah, it's exactly that. It's just that when I think back to when I was meant to go, I was just overthinking for months and months.
Yeah.
I was just so worried about everything. And then I associate obviously being in hot places, which I hate, with not feeling great anyway. So it just was a whole, like, I don't like flying. Just everything about it is horrible. So
What was uni like then for you, in terms of like, did you move far away from home? If this is, quite a key time perhaps as well, when you started to notice these symptoms post uni, big change again, coming back from uni, being away. What was that like?
Yeah. So I went to uni in Hull. And I'm from Suffolk, so it's like 4 hours away. So I went quite far away. Like the first few years, or those first years I did uni were absolutely fine. And I stayed in Hull for another year and just worked full time. Didn't want to give up the uni life. Didn't want to move back with my parents. I was having the best time. And just things were happening that were just, I can't explain it. Like the only way I can explain it is like I just felt like something was wrong with me. I felt it. I felt something was wrong with my brain. That's the only thing I can say. And it was a lot of tiredness. And I just felt sad, like really, and that wasn't like me. I was always a really like happy-go-lucky person, but I just felt incredibly like low, sad, and I couldn't really explain it, but it just felt like something inside me was different. And because I didn't feel right, I was panicking about it. And before I was 21, I don't think I ever experienced any form of anxiety. I don't think I did. I never was anxious about anything. I trusted everyone. I would do anything. It was just weird. And I remember, because my mum has a thyroid problem. So she has underactive thyroid and she's celiac as well. So I knew it was likely that I would have something maybe running in the family. So I just kept checking for thyroid stuff really, and like doing blood tests, but they just kept saying I was depressed and anxious really. So it was just, they did a couple of blood tests and that was it. But so after that, not long after that, I decided to move home back to Suffolk with my family. But I would have stayed there. Like I would have stayed away. It was just, I don't know. I just felt like I was getting fobbed off quite badly.
I think that's times when you need that security from your family, or that comfort and reassurance, because no matter what, they're gonna have your back and try and help you. So I think it's quite natural then you want to come home and try and figure things out, especially if it kind of feels like there's this, something's changing, something's wrong, you don't know what it is, no one's listening to you, you're on your own. That's only going to increase that kind of stress and anxious feelings and low feelings, because what do you do? Where'd you turn?
I know, it just felt a bit so honestly in my head I just thought I was made to feel like maybe I was overreacting, maybe I was just not making it up, but like it wasn't as bad as I felt like it was. So I just tried to push through it really for years. And when I did get home, I mean, doctors, they just seemed a little bit quicker and things like that, but it was always the same thing. It was just like you're anxious, you're anxious and depressed. That was all I really got.
You're living this adult life. It's new. You just can't handle it. So, read this book or take these pills, and I'm sure it'll be fine. Sort of thing.
Yeah, it was just, it's so hard. Like looking back, because I was like, can't tell you how many times I went to the doctors before my diagnosis. It must have been, and it was always because it was a specific thing to say.
Yeah.
But my brain doesn't feel right. People were
Yeah.
just like, what are you on about?
Thing is though, if your leg doesn't feel right or it's
Yeah,
hurting, you go to the doctors, they'll prod
yeah,
about, they'll do some scans or x-rays and they'll look at it. But when it's your brain, you say it's mentally I'm not feeling like I normally do and there's no real cause or reason for it. I guess it does get brushed off quite a bit like
yeah.
that.
It
And I think
really,
as well, in terms of like general practice for going to see a GP or when you're talking about conditions or symptoms, MS is so sort of there's not enough awareness for it. And I think we only
100%.
learn and go on this journey once we're diagnosed, and we think, how the hell did not more people know about it? And if we knew about it then, perhaps we would have got things done a bit quicker.
Yeah, definitely. I remember, so I think when I had my really like big relapse, and when I was 28, what led to my diagnosis. So I remember really clearly, it was like just after Christmas, it was in January, and I woke up one day with completely numb hands. So I just woke up really numb. We had a bit of a heavy weekend that weekend. I thought, I
Yeah,
don't know
hell of
what.
a hangover. Yeah.
I was like, yeah, it's a weird hangover. I'm like, like nearly 30 now or whatever. So maybe this is what happens. I can't feel my hands. And then 2 days after that, it sort of spread. So I then went
Right.
completely numb, waist down, and my hands stayed.
Wow.
Um, and again, I was being like thinking, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. I kept Googling everything, and obviously MS kept coming up. So
Yeah.
I was aware that could be an option, and a brain
Yeah.
tumor, and I think it's all the other stuff that you
Yeah.
probably Googled. And I went to the doctors then as well. So I had to go 3 times in that period. So first went and said, like, my hands are numb and I'm numb waist down. And they said that it was carpal tunnel thing.
Yeah.
But I was like, what
I
about
got the same. I think it's just the numbness in limbs. It's like, it must be carpal tunnel.
And I'm like, well, what about my legs? Like, I can't do anything. I was like, really? And they're like, yeah, it's just probably that. And then they went down the like trapped nerve sort of thing. So they said, right, go and do. So I went to an osteopath for 3 weeks, maybe. Nothing was happening. And then someone said about this really good physio lady who's apparently the best. So I went to her. And in the time that I was going to doctors and they kept saying it was anxiety, it was carpal tunnel, whatever they were trying to tell me, they were just bobbing me off. And I went to her, and I think it was my 5th or 6th session, and I was getting really anxious now because I was like, I've been pretty numb now for about 8 weeks, I don't know. And she actually said to me, and I'm so grateful. And at the time, my mum was like livid with this because I knew in my head, and no one was listening to me. It kept coming up MS, so I thought I had MS, but everyone was just like, "Don't be silly. You're just quite an anxious person, Jay." And I'm like, and she said to me, she's like, "I'm not going to treat you anymore." And she was like, "I really need you to listen to me." And she's like, "I hope you have a good doctor." And then I was like panicking, like, "What do you mean?" And she was like, "You're showing a lot of early signs of MS." And then that for me, and like, I know she shouldn't have said anything, but I was so grateful. And that was when I had my freak out moments. It was actually before my diagnosis, and I was hysterically crying. And I was like, oh my God, I knew I had something wrong with me. And I remember ringing my mum up crying. Sam was in the car and I was just like sobbing. And my mum was like, she should never have said that. She doesn't know. She's not like, she wouldn't know that. Like, don't listen to her. But I was like, but she was right. Like, she actually knew.
You felt like she was the first person listening to you and how you felt.
She listened to me. So for me, that was like my massive, like that was my moment where I was just distraught. And I knew a lot about MS actually. So when I was diagnosed, I knew a lot about MS because my mum's best friend, my mum and stepdad's best friend, and one of my best friend's dads, so the same person, he has always had progressive MS. So what I knew of MS was someone who has full-time carers who, it was the worst case scenario.
Yeah, it's that stereotype, isn't it, of being frail or in a wheelchair or,
And he was the nicest possible, he is the nicest possible man ever. He is so lovely. And I've also seen obviously what it's done to, or how it's hurt like my friends, seen his dad like that. It's just, obviously this was a really long time ago. He got diagnosed and he was always told it was progressive. But that is all that me and my mum and my family knew.
Yeah.
So I didn't know about different types of MS. Did you? Did you know this?
No, I mean, one of my friends has MS, but it's not something that that he particularly likes to sort of talk. I mean, everyone deals with it differently, and don't see him that much. It's not necessarily something that kind of he would have just talked about anyway. So I knew that he had it, and I didn't really know what it was. And to me, he was always fine. Like we've been on, you know, lads trips again, like, or nights out on the town, sort of going out for drinks. And I think, you know, if anyone else met him, you wouldn't think that there was anything necessarily wrong with him. And I think for him, it's a personal thing he's dealing with, and that's how he wants to deal with it. So, and that's absolutely fine. So yeah, I knew it was something, and people had mentioned that actually, no, it's quite a serious thing that he's got, and it can really affect your life. But it wasn't until I moved into, I started out as a mortgage advisor. So obviously started to talk about insurances, and it was actually when I was doing health questionnaires with other people.
Yeah.
And I was like, have you ever felt like this? Do you feel this? And I think, why do they want to know all this? Because I feel that. I've got that. Then did the Google diagnosis and thought, oh, right. So I guess there isn't. You don't see a lot in media, I guess, or in films, TV. There's not much representation really of anyone with MS. When I guess it affects people in ways that I guess you think cancers, heart attacks, strokes, you know, that along with MS, they're the sort of four most sort of they impact people in the most severe ways, and there are quite a lot of people that suffer with those in the UK, but it's just one that's sort of never really talked about. So I guess in short, I didn't really know. It wasn't until I was starting to think like you did that it could be something that I've got, that I started to sort of go down the rabbit hole.
And I feel like I was really naive. Like I saw obviously one of my mum's best friends going through all this, and obviously it was never really spoke about, like as in like what symptoms he actually had. It was just like stupidly, I didn't realize that you got numbness with it and all these things. I just thought one day he just couldn't walk. Like I didn't really know. Like, I just thought he just couldn't do it, and I just had no idea. And I get a bit annoyed with myself, like, because I felt like I should know, but you just sometimes you don't, like you said with your friend, until you're there and you're, I don't know,
unless they want to talk to you about it. I mean, obviously with the types of symptoms that you can get, you know, they are quite personal, and they do affect you in strange and wonderful ways. So it's not necessarily something that someone might want to talk to everyone about. They might be quite private about it. So
definitely,
yeah. So is it something that you've spoken to your friend about more since you've been diagnosed? Have you had more talks about it? Do you find that you naturally end up sort of talking about it?
Definitely. So we sort of did anyway, like it was always something we sort of spoke about. And then he was one of the first people, like when I was getting diagnosed, that I reached out to, and I was like, look, it is suspected MS. And even my friend, like seeing his dad like that, that's all we know of MS really. Like we just don't know much else. So we just thought, in my head, those early days of diagnosis, it was like, oh, they've said I've got relapsing, but how do they know? Like I was very much like, I don't know how they know that though. Like how do they know it's not progressive? I was just very much like, I thought that was how I was going to be, and there was no other option for me. I didn't realize that. Yeah, it's so hard.
Yeah, so many different like slight variations of it, and secondary progressive, or there's some sort of relapsing progressive. I don't. Yeah, there's even ones that I haven't even properly looked into, because I suppose it's all just sort of experience based, really, isn't it? And what you know from who you've met, or
definitely
what you've done. Have you found that you've because obviously you've got a really great Instagram profile, which is how we've sort of connected with each other. How have you found that sort of, and I will post a link as well, of course, down in the comments to make sure people go follow you. But how have you found that sort of community where it's sort of more based around other people that share your experiences, as opposed to you telling people or talking to people that really don't understand?
I have got a lot to thank like the Instagram community for, because that kept me all through my diagnosis. I was constantly following people with MS even before I knew I had it, just to see how they were doing. And it gave me hope when I was, you know, like a 28-year-old girl looking through, not knowing what the hell my future looked like. So I just always thought, oh, I'm just going to do it and just post the things that I wanted to see, and hopefully that will help one person or someone. And I didn't expect it to get big, like, you know, like I thought I'd get like 100 followers. I didn't think it would get like a
More
few
for
more.
you than anyone else, kind of you, like a cathartic thing where it's a way for you to sort of like a therapy almost, but actually people really
It's
resonate
like,
with what you're posting.
and it helps. Like it helps me to just get my feelings out, and then I just feel like it then gives my friends and family the choice. They can follow it or they can't. They can just follow my private one. So, but if they do want to know more about it, then they've got that option where they can understand it a little bit more and things like that. But it's really helped me. I have so many people to thank for in that community. Like, I've met so many amazing people. I've met people who really inspired me and kept me going in my darkest days. Like, I just don't know what I'd have done without finding the people that I have. I do post things on TikTok, but people are a bit mean on TikTok. I'm like, I don't know if
All right. It's not something I've ventured into too much. So
you use it, no. I'm like, why are they so mean? It's just, I don't know. I
trolls
prefer
everywhere.
Instagram, but I do still go on TikTok. But you get a little bit. Have noticed to get trolled a little bit more on that.
Really?
It's a bit weird, yeah. It's like people think you're making it up. Yeah, I don't know.
That's so frustrating.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
sorry that
weird.
you've experienced that. That's it's another reason for me, I think, to stay clear of TikTok. It's not something
Yeah, like,
I have an account and I've not something
yeah.
I've ever really bothered with.
It might be like, well, some people might find it fine.
What?
Maybe it's
Sorry,
just, yeah, I don't
it's my phone
know.
going.
I don't know.
Sorry,
But
say
it's
again.
I don't know if it's just me or if other people found it a bit like that. But like, I remember the first post, one of my first posts, I just posted about like, this is what someone with MS looks like, and it was like me having drinks out with my friends, like just like a light-hearted thing, like, you know, you can, this is how you can look. And I just got like a lot of abuse for like drinking and stuff, and I was like, ooh.
Yeah, how dare you have fun?
I'm not going to stop drinking. I'm still going to have the odd beer. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot
I've
like that.
found alcohol does. It's one of the things that people kind of talk to you about quite quickly, and you almost expect it because it's never going to be like encouraged. Like, no, alcohol is actually really good for you, for your MS.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Do you still drink, Liam, or do you?
So I used to drink quite a bit. I was sort of one of these guys that really got into his craft beer and started to
Oh yeah.
really obscure beers from random places. And even just before the pandemic, I'd sort of started a little small brewery project myself that I was having quite a bit of fun with, and
Yeah.
it's been really good fun, to be fair, and had a lot of good feedback, and it's some great experiences. Then as my pain started to get worse and I found my symptoms were getting worse, I rightly or wrongly started to lean more towards cannabis.
Yeah.
And I found that I was having a lot of difficulty sleeping. My pain was keeping me up. And then, it's like I often say, like, I don't just drink beer, I start a brewery. It has to be the extreme. So like with the cannabis, it was like, a little bit on a night became more on the night, became a bit when I got back from work, became, trying to find a reason to do it. So I probably smoked like a considerable amount for about 2 years. And then I'm maybe about 4 months off it now.
Amazing.
Which I'm really pleased with. It was difficult to kind of shake it off, as T Swizz would say. But I'm now like, I'm missing some of the benefits of it, but there are like negatives about it that I realize now it wasn't perhaps the right way for me. Other people, it's different. But because of that, I'm now starting to see beers sort of creeping back in. So I've made the decision to sort of, as I have done on a few occasions in my life and not stuck to, but I'm stopping the drink for at least a bit. I'm not putting the pressure on myself yet of saying I've quit drinking. But I had sort of a few beers over the weekend as like, these are my last ones. I'm going to watch the footy, have a few beers, and that's it. So like 2 days sober, which isn't. I don't think they give out medals for that. But
It's so hard. I do. So when I was at the beginning, because I do love a drink, but I do feel like I've got a bit of an all or nothing personality sometimes. I do think I'm a bit like, when I'm out, I don't really know when to stop. Like I do. I'm nowhere near.
I relate to that so much.
Like I was, but because I've just got that little bit party girl in me where I want to keep going and stay out. But yeah, I had to, when I did like three and a half months, I think, at the beginning of this year when I was training for the half marathon, where I gave it up completely.
Which is amazing, by the way.
Thank you. It was really hard, but I'm glad I did it. But I did it for 3.5 months, just nothing, like no alcohol at all. And I found it so much easier to do that. I feel like I'd have to do one or the other. I can't.
Yeah.
Like the odd glass of wine or a beer, I can do that sometimes, but I just had to. I found it a lot easier just saying completely no.
Yeah. I think if you give yourself the choice or flexibility, if you
Yeah.
have a personality that is like ours seems to,
Yeah.
both seems to be,
Very similar.
you'll go with the option when it's there. But
Yeah.
I'd like to think that, I think perhaps I might stumble into, full on sobriety, but I'd like to be in a position where I can just not be wanting to have a drink and just knock it on the head. But then when Christmas comes along, or if it's someone's birthday, I can have a few drinks and enjoy them, and then go back to it and not, like you said, because there's so many things that we do have to give up or do be mindful of that, you don't want to just deny yourself of all of life's pleasures and, just be miserable.
Exactly. I think we're very like similar. Like I just flip from things a little bit. Like I'm like, I want to do it, but then when I think of Christmas, I'm like, oh, it's just really hard. People did ask.
I know there's lots of great like.
Sorry, go on. I didn't then.
That's fine.
People did ask me, like in those 3.5 months when I gave it up, if it helped my MS, but I didn't feel like it did.
No.
But obviously, I felt I did feel less anxious. I felt I was getting really long runs in. Like I felt fresh and I felt a lot better. But like it wasn't. Still had my tiredness. I still had like my little shake. I didn't have anything else. It was still exactly the same for me. But
I think people assume, I've done like you've done. I did little spells here and there, and I think people are like, well, give up drinking. That's obviously going to help. And it's particularly when I was so like into my craft beers and was drinking probably, I'll say probably I was drinking a little bit too much. People will assume that if you say, oh, well, it's not, I don't really feel a benefit from it. And you're like, oh, come on, you will be. You're obviously just wanting to have a drink. But it doesn't, I think it's more so like you've said, it perhaps allows you to do some of the things that you're trying to do to better yourself a bit easier. So it's not making you feel better, but you can run a bit further, which will help your MS. So it's like almost an indirect benefit, maybe.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I do.
But
yeah.
Did you always do running? Or is that something you decided to do because of the diagnosis?
Well, it was a bit strange, really. So it was obviously, when I had my first big relapse, it was a January. So I was obviously on that new year, new me. I'm going to start a running club. Never ran before. So I was like, I'm going to start a running club, like a little one, which was like 0 to 5K. And I started that, and I started running with them a little bit and doing like a little boot camp. And I remember like saying, oh, does anyone else get numbness when they run? Like thinking, because I'm starting running? Like I always
that runner's numbness that we all get, right, guys?
Just like looking at me like, what are you on about? And I was like, so I always ran. So my first ever run, or I didn't know if I'd like done something at boot camp or something. It was such a similar time, but I've never ran without numbness. So it was a brand new thing for me. So it was all. I had MS unknowingly at the time, and I was running. And I just remember like it was so extreme. So I remember like we're like at boot camp and doing like the little like burpees, and my where my my jumper like rode up a bit, and so my back was out, and it was like obviously freezing cold, and I couldn't even feel it. Someone was like, "Oh my god, you're like your back's out." Like you'd usually just go like that, wouldn't you? And I couldn't even feel it. I remember thinking like
completely unaware.
It's like, what is
so bizarre? It's weird. It's something that you've just associated with running or exercise. It's like this is why it's happening, or I'm doing too much. I need to,
I just thought it wasn't for me. Exercise wasn't for me. Like obviously I'm having loads of weird stuff happening, but I never ever ran. Never did run before. It's something I thought I would hate. I hated it. It took me a very, very long time to like it. A year probably, like a long time. I kept trying. I had loads of tears in that. I had loads of, I don't know what happened. I don't know why. I just really wanted to run a 5K. That was my goal. I was like, one day I'm going to run a 5K. That was just all I could think about. And when people ask me about running with MS, I'm like, it really did take me a really, really long time. Like it really wasn't easy for me. But when I did it, and one day I just started to like it, and which is crazy. When I say that, I'm like, I can't believe this is me. I just start to like it now. But it's the best thing. Like for anxiety and stuff, it does make me feel so much better. But
I think that there is a lot to be said, isn't there, for exercise, albeit it's something that we all find hard or have to change or adapt to be able to do. But if you can find that way of exercising that you do enjoy, or you at least begin to enjoy, then it's really important. I think I think you're going to inspire me to get back to it, because I've not done anything really for a while. I did that one session on playing ice hockey for like the first time in 4 years, and it's like I've ticked that off my list now. It's like, I'll just sit down now. It's me done.
That's awesome. It is hard.
Was it the yeah, it really is. But I think there is that kind of resilience and determination that we get to try and maybe prove to ourselves or other people that we can do these things, that perhaps inspires you to keep going, and hopefully you will sort of get into a rhythm with it and enjoy it. And it was the running thing. I think it was some of those posts that I think popped up on my feed first. And that was kind of like a lot of what you were doing first of all, wasn't it, with your page? It was like running with MS and those sort of challenges. And did you get sort of like quite a good response to that, or any questions or things that people have sort of...
I really did. And people were just like, how did you like start running with the numbness? And to be honest, that might have been why it took me so long to get to it, to get to where I wanted to be, because it was like running with a body that I didn't know. Like I couldn't feel. I had to sometimes look at the floor and just check my feet were like hitting the ground, because I couldn't really feel it. I could only hear it. But then eventually, like, I got some of my feeling back, but not barely, like nothing, not a lot really. But
does that still happen now then when you run? Do you find that numbness in the same sort of places, or has it changed?
So since that first big relapse, my hands are still numb, and I'm still pretty numb waist down. And I always remember them saying to me, and I know they will say different things in different places, but they said, if it lasts longer than a year, then it's permanent damage. So I put a little note on my phone, like, okay, I've got a year for this to go. And it just didn't go, unfortunately. It come back maybe a little bit, but it's just, it's nothing. I find it, I would love to remember how it felt like before. Like how my body felt, because right now it's just like, because my hands are numb, when I touch like anywhere, it just feels weird.
And you can't remember what that sensation is supposed to be like anymore.
How amazing to be.
It's really interesting you say that about the damage, because I didn't actually know that was something that they sort of said with the whole 12-month kind of cutoff, because I've always said to people that my assumption was that I've been misdiagnosed, or I've like I either should have been progressive, or at least I'm already on to secondary, because I don't understand necessarily the whole relapse and then remittance, because any symptom that I've had, I still get. I've had some DMTs. I've tried a couple. One didn't really work. Had some more activity on my scan. Moved on to another. So far, so good. Touch wood. Nothing new has sort of popped up, but I do find that I still have the same symptoms, and some of them feel like they are perhaps a little bit more harder work. Like the fatigue I've always had, but I feel more fatigued, more tired. Maybe that's diet. I don't know. But like you, one of my early symptoms was my left hand's numb. It's been numb since just before I got married. And I can't remember, like, even though I've got a hand here that's not numb or that does flare up sometimes, but it's just, I'm just kind of used to it. And I don't know what relapse and remittance like really actually means, like what defines it. I don't know.
Do you think, because when I ask them, it feels like they don't know either. I'm like, what? Nurses stuff. Like, it's like, I just don't know how they know. I just get confused even more. I'm like, hey, you're just like me. You don't know either, do you? Because you're just...
I'm just going to put a post about it on Instagram and hope someone comes and gives me some answers.
Like, is this... But they don't seem to give me any like answers that I understand. I'm very confused. Like, so is it a relapse or is this... is this just normal me?
This is a part that we're gonna have to chop up into a clip, aren't we? Or like, if someone's watching on the full thing on YouTube, like, please drop a comment if you do know. But then, we'll have to chop this up and share it and hope someone perhaps comes to us with some answers. Because like you said, it's a lot of stuff we don't think they know. No,
I just don't know. Like really confused.
I'm glad I'm just as confused as you. It's not just like I don't think it's just me. It's
and I do go to Instagram and ask people, then I get 3 different answers. So I'm like, okay, I still don't know. Then I just don't know. Some people get told after 24 hours is classed as a new symptom, it's a relapse. But then I was like, okay, so I always have had tremors, But
Yeah.
obviously that was extreme. These are extreme. That's to me, I'd class that as new. Where they're just like, no, that's just a flare up of an old lesion. And I'm like, just so confused. Like, what is new? What is
Yeah.
I'm like, I've never had this
Yeah.
before. It's so
So I
weird.
guess like a new relapse has to be like a new lesion. Then it's a new attack
Yeah.
on your brain, neck, or spine. But then because they put do you have like the dye injected in before you have an MRI so they
I
can
don't
see?
have that, but some people at Cambridge
No.
do. So I'm at Cambridge
Yeah.
and at Adam Brooks. Some people do, and some people don't have that. So again, that confuses me. So I'm like, why do I not have that, and some of you do?
Yeah. Because
Is it like that
if
way?
the like, well, yeah, it's something to do with like the shadow in it that shows whether or not a lesion is currently active, or if you've managed to sort of make it become inactive, or does that mean it's not going to happen anymore? Does that mean it's if you have it again, is it a relapse or a new? I don't know what the terminology is or what it means or why it's different. But I guess that's again a sort of summary of the whole thing, isn't it? Like everyone's experiences can be so similar and so different at the same time that it's just a mindful. I feel like we all need to do some sort of like neuroscience degree just to figure it all out.
It just seems a bit. And everyone I speak to, like every nurse I speak to, tends to get a different sort of reply. So I don't really know. Like I had another thing I had. This is just before the wedding, leading up to the wedding. Again, I was quite stressed. So I've always had numbness.
Stress, I think
sometimes on one side of my face, but then I started having it all on the other side of my face. And I've had it one side, but they're telling me it's a different symptom on the other side. But then they did like the scan, MRI and stuff, and it's all clear. So
okay. That doesn't seem to make sense either.
Yeah, so they're like, it's a relapse. It's a relapse if it's a new symptom. So it was. They said it was a new symptom. And then they were like, the scan's clear, so you haven't relapsed since October 2019, which is what I go by because I don't really know. But yeah, I'm just.
So it's an old new symptom or a new old relapse. So that's crazy. So I really wanted to ask you as well. Actually, I'm glad you've touched on it again there. But what was it like trying to plan a wedding? Like knowing the symptoms that you have and how stress can perhaps indicate them. Because I got a lot of my symptoms sort of leading up to the wedding. We just sort of bought a house the year before, and obviously trying to save money and moving and stuff's quite stressful. And then I stupidly proposed, and then we had a bloody wedding to plan, and that was stressful. So I think perhaps if stress is an indicator of it or an influence on it, then definitely that was a good reason why. But this all kind of my diagnosis and stuff was all after all that had been sort of all finished. So what was it like trying to stay organized, trying to stay positive and not worry? When you're living with MS?
It was hard. It was hard. Like this, and I mean, I really mean this. I had to plan all year for my hen do's, for my wedding. I had to maybe it was, obviously I know like my track record is I tremor when hen do's happen, apparently. It was just what happens. So it was like trying to keep well for those. It was just hard. And I really did have to have a lot of rest weekends. And I spoke to my boss at work because I was like, I don't want to push through any sort of fatigue, which sometimes I would have done this year. I was like, this is the year I need to be well. So I did notice that I had a lot more time off work. It seemed to be every 2 months I tend to have maybe like 3 or 4 days off just because I would be quite fatigued. So I just took it when I was tired, and they were amazing with me. I was like, I just don't want to push through it. I don't want to get a tremor. I don't want to be ill. I planned everything ridiculously. Like I was so organized, like annoyingly so. But that meant before everyone was getting annoyed. I feel like no one said they were getting annoyed, but like Sam, I was like, we need to do this now. And he's like, do we actually? I was just like, no, we need to do it now. I was really annoying.
I need to do it now. I need to get it done. I don't have to worry
I was like, I need to do this. Like again with like bridesmaid dresses and things like that, I was very like on it. Like everything had to be done so early. So it was stressful. But then the week actually before our wedding, so I put 2 weeks off. So I had the week off before, and I I'd done so
Sorry, was
much.
that on purpose then? Did you take that week off?
Yeah, on purpose. Yeah.
Just to not just plan, but also to try and get your body, calm and
Exactly. Yeah.
de-stress.
Like,
Yeah.
I had to, I was just like, I could have a few lay-ins and stuff like that. I even got like we paid extra for someone like who was a stylist I told her what I wanted and just paid her to like do all there is the thing, what's it called? I can't, my brain's going funny. She's like a wedding stylist. And then on the day she was doing like helping get everything in order. And she said, so a week before, she sent me over like the final bits sheet or something. And I just filled it all in straight away, like everything. And she was like, you don't realize how organized that you are. Like, like a week before, there's usually still loads outstanding, because I just like did everything. I was like, no, I need it gone. So the week before, which was the best thing ever, like me and Sam ended up having like really nothing to do. Like there was nothing to do. So we had that week off before the wedding. So we went to the seaside, we went out for meals. Like it was so nice. And I so glad that I did prepare early on, because it meant I had such a nice week before the wedding. Like I wasn't stressed. I actually felt really calm.
Yeah.
So it's so great.
It's almost like an advantage, isn't it? You think most people's lead up to a wedding's incredibly stressful and arguing or, causing all sorts of drama. But then actually you've got to spend some really nice quality time with your then fiance to, enjoy each other's company and do nice things and relax. And I think that, that seems like a really, something that everyone should try and do if they're organizing the wedding, just to take in that last moment of the build up.
Definitely. I'm happy. I know that there was times where Sam he's in the other room. So if he comes, he'll probably hear me in a minute, but he was definitely getting annoyed. He was just, like with the best men and groomsmen, I think there was something they had to do and then they didn't do it. So I was like, right, I'm putting a group chat together and I'm going to put them all in there and I'm going to sort this out. So I was like, don't.
I'll do it myself.
You look mental. It's just like 5 months before the wedding.
Yeah, bridezilla over here.
I was just like, yeah,
that's good though. Like you said, you just sort of realize what you needed to do, realize what you wanted to do, and just we're so on the ball with it. Because I can imagine for some people in the same sort of situation, you can sort of succumb to it perhaps, or you think, I don't have the energy for this, just sod it, I don't care anymore, just it'll be what it'll be. But actually, from some of the pictures that I've seen and the clips that you've shared, it just looked like an incredible day. And loads of fun. And I think, you had so many, people in these, I don't know, we'll call it the MS Instagram community, cheering you on and so happy for you. So big congratulations, because it was, we were all really, really happy.
It was just an amazing day. I mean, there was a lot of cancelled plans. There was a lot of time off work. It wasn't easy. It was just, it was worth it though, planning it that early, I think.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah, I think that's something that I think you perhaps, for anyone listening, it's something that you can perhaps take into any other aspect of your life, that if there is something significant or that's important to you, that preparation is really important. I always use the term negotiating with your MS. So it's like, right, I want to do this, so I'll stop doing this and I'll add this bit in here and I'll make sure I've done this by this day, and then can you leave me alone to enjoy this, please? And I think that's really a really, really good way of doing it.
Definitely. I do feel now, and I know what I'm like, so I did expect this to happen. But now the wedding's out of the way, I'm like, I feel like I've taken on too much work. Do you know what I mean? I'm overworking a little bit. I'm pushing through some fatigue here and there. So I'm trying to rein that back in after Christmas, I think. But I'm just a bit, because I work 2 jobs. So I have 2 jobs and I'm just always working. And I'm a bit of a workaholic, I'd say. And I just need to rein it in a little bit.
Yeah, listen to your body, rest when you need it, not try and do too much. It sounds like you're the type that almost needs a distraction away from how you're feeling in your MS, and it's almost like, I'm too busy to feel so tired, I'm too busy to think about this too much, so I'm just going to distract myself. And I guess that can be a bit of a coping mechanism perhaps for you.
It definitely is. I think you put it on the nail on the head, really. It definitely is, I think. Because sometimes when I stop, that's when it's quite overwhelming, the fatigue, isn't it? Sometimes if I just stop and like have a chilled weekend, so I I would just sleep and I do know I need that, but yeah, I push through too.
Yeah, I think you do. You do need to allow yourself that time, don't you? But no, I'm the same. Like I've got 2 young kids, so I'm up when they're up. You know, I'm up and out of bed. But we, do try and. Yeah, it's it's tough with the fatigue. But my wife's great in that she, we will try and give each other a lie in when we can fit it in so that we can rest. And I often find that if I sleep in and rest, I feel worse when I get up.
Yeah.
I just feel so slow and sluggish and even like heavier and more tired that actually sometimes just getting up and getting on with it is just the best way to kind of perhaps build up a bit of momentum maybe.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree. I get like that sometimes. But then and then when you get the really like the worst sort of fatigue, it doesn't even matter about anything, does it? You're just like literally I'll do something.
Yeah. I'm gonna lie here. I'm gonna lie here, and I want to be left alone, please.
Absolutely nothing. But
well, there's another couple of questions. Oh, sorry, go on.
Oh no, I was going to say, what is it? What was it like? What is it like being a parent with MS?
Yeah, it's tough, and I think, like you've said, from planning the wedding, you just have to plan things in advance and they say that kids thrive off a routine, and it's the best way to get them, to overcome certain hurdles or what the word is, but like milestones, I guess, whether it's like potty training or getting them to get into a sort of sleep pattern. It's all about routine, and actually I think that really lends itself well to you as a parent as well, because if you can get them into a routine, then you can kind of be in that routine with them, and you know that, right, if they're going to go to sleep, like we have the same bedtime routine every night now. We'll take them up at the same time, bath, PJs on, read a couple of stories, and then getting down to bed. And I know that, as the day's getting on and I'm getting more tired, I think, right, it's only an hour, or it's only an hour and a bit till bath time, and then I can have a bit of a rest if I want it. And the same when it comes to like, right, we're going to go out. We're not going to just laze around the house today. Let's go and do something. So we plan what we're going to need, what am I going to have to factor in perhaps? And I guess even if you're not talking about it as a group, or as a group, but like if kind of going into detail with your own sort of expectations, I think knowing what you're doing and having a bit of a plan or something to look forward to, or knowing what's going to happen when, I think allows you to accommodate, to negotiate with those symptoms, and you just have to know that perhaps you might overdo it at some point, or you might need a bit more rest. And again, Stevie's really good at just saying to kids, like, Daddy needs a rest, just leave him alone for a bit now. Good. Just never sit down. And they're really good. And I think they sense it as well sometimes when you need that pickup as well. Like if you are just sluggish and slow, like they'll just jump on you and you don't have time to feel sorry for yourself. You just, you're having fun with them. So I certainly wouldn't let anything like MS put you off, starting a family, if that was something, married couple and starting families together and things like that. It's just something that I think, again, it just needs more thought perhaps, or preparation, or
I admire. I think it's amazing. Like I do follow a lot of people on Instagram with children, and I just think it's amazing. You're bossing it because it's hard. It's so hard.
You'll find the whole like like night feeds and things like that. I'm saying like starting a family, but I think people that are choosing to have kids and stuff, the whole like night feeds and sleep routines at the start are really tough. But actually, if you're used to feeling knackered all the time, you're actually all right with it, because it's just sort of I don't feel any worse than I do anyway. So I've got a little bit of a perk, I guess. I'm always knackered, so it's don't worry about it. Don't worry. There were a couple of questions I wanted to ask before I let you go, that I'm trying to sort of ask everyone that I'm going to be speaking with. And first of all, it would be, what advice would you give to yourself if you could go back to sort of as you were getting diagnosed, or whilst you were experiencing the things you were diagnosed with? What kind of sort of what would you think to say perhaps to them?
So what I would tell myself then, so the first, and I mean, I guess it's very normal to be feeling like this. I was so fixated on the future and what my future would look like. I just, everything I did, like I was, so we went to Centre Parks on our first little getaway together, and I've been diagnosed for 3 or 4 months or something. And I was just like, I don't know, like looking at like where the disabled toilets were. I don't know. I was just looking at just the tiny little things. I was just very much like, I was just really, really worrying about what tomorrow might look like, what a year might look like, what might 4 years look like. I was so fixated on it that it was just making my anxiety so much worse. And now, I will be honest, I don't really think about what my future looks like at all. I just take I just live so in the moment now. And then obviously if something comes up and it affects me, I'll deal with it there and then, but I just don't fixate on what could be, because I'm like, well, this is me today and this is what I can do today. So I try and live like that now. But that was hard getting there, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose you don't want it to think like you're not burying your head in the sand. You're not ignoring it, but you are just embracing what you can do now and the things that you enjoy. You're making the most of any opportunity that you might get.
Exactly.
No, I think that's really sound advice.
Yeah.
And these answers might be the same, but I would be interested to know what you would tell someone who is newly diagnosed. What advice you might give them, that perhaps it's something that's helped you, or again something that perhaps you worried about at the start, like any sort of thing.
Yeah, so it probably is a similar answer to what I just gave, but also so the first year of my diagnosis, I lived my life exactly as I was. I was like, I'm not changing. I had to, obviously, it's not, my body wasn't the same. I had to make changes. But I felt like I always tried to do everything at once. So it's like, right, I've got to exercise, I've got to do this, I've got to do this. And it doesn't work like that. So what I found worked for me, and again, it's a lot of trial and error, I feel like the vegetarian diet has really helped me. So I stick to that. I know that that's something. I feel like obviously the walking and running, I think that's helped me. I tried to go vegan. I couldn't do it. Like there was other things I tried to do and I couldn't do it. I just couldn't. I tried to give up alcohol.
Vegan is tough. It's tough.
I couldn't do everything. So I tried to maybe, every year, maybe not every year, like however long between things. If I think I can improve something a little bit more, I'll try to, but I don't do everything at once, because everyone's telling you so many different things. You've got to do this, you've got to do that. This will help. This will help. And it's just trial and error. Like
so overwhelming.
It's so overwhelming. Yeah. It's so, you just don't know what to do. Like, and everyone's different, aren't they? So
no, you're absolutely right. I think that's great advice, to be fair, because being that everyone's experience, everyone's symptoms are different. Some things may work better for other people, but focusing perhaps on making sure you're doing some sort of movement, some exercise, thinking about the things that you're putting into your body and your diet, but not trying to do it all in one go. Start small, little changes, small steps. A good friend of mine always says that little bricks build big castles, and I think that's it. It's the whole like you'll get there eventually, won't you? And I think that's great advice.
That's it. I think that is it. I think it's just so overwhelming at first. And I think one half of you is like, I don't want to change. I'm young. I want to stay how I am. And then there's like the other half, like, you need to do everything. Let's do everything. Like,
you need to do it now.
It's so hard. It is so hard. And I feel like my darkest days were in those first 6 months, I think.
Yeah. I think that's normal, isn't it? Like it's you're at the start of this unknown journey, but other people perhaps knowing now that there is some light at the end of that tunnel. There is a great life that you can live. You just sort of got to figure it out.
Yeah, you just got to figure it out. That's it. Everything works differently for different people, and it's really hard to figure it out. But we're still all doing it, aren't we? Like when we were talking earlier,
we are. And another great point as well, that there is like an ever-growing community of people who are living with some version of the same thing that you have, and we're all kind of here supporting each other. So I'm really grateful to you and everyone else that I interact with on Instagram and on YouTube, because it's really empowering, isn't it? And I think it's hopefully spreading some positivity and some hope.
Definitely. I've loved this. If you ever need me to talk again, I can talk for ages. I love it. It's really nice.
Definitely. Well, I have mentioned to a couple of people about perhaps doing like every now and then, like a few of us jumping on, doing like a sort of like a group chat sort of hangout, be like loose women, wouldn't it? Like,
yes, love it.
Yeah, so I'll definitely keep you on the list, and we'll definitely have a catch up soon. But really appreciate your time. It's been lovely talking to you and hearing your story. So and like I said, I'll be sure to post your Instagram link in the description. If you're watching on YouTube, it'll be flashing up on screen as well. So make sure everyone goes and follows you. But thank you so much.
No, thank you. I've got loads of questions to ask you now. I need to because I want to know more about your stuff. So we have to do another call.
I'm a mystery. Yes, we'll save that for the next episode. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Really appreciate your time chatting with me today. And
it's
take care.
been great. Thank you.